They say every star begins in the dark. But no one tells you how cold that darkness can be, or how long you might be stuck there, waiting for someone to notice your light. That year, I remember clearly, it rained for a whole week. The dirt road leading up to Beechwood Middle School turned to mush, thick with mud. So much so that some parents didn't even bother driving all the way in. Inside the gymnasium, lights blazed from the ceiling, sound tests echoed across brick walls, and the air smelled like a heady mix of hairspray and perfume. It was talent show night. Kids had been preparing for weeks, even months. Some practiced ballet routines. Others rehearsed their piano pieces, or beatboxing tricks they'd learned from YouTube. The audience was packed, parents crammed into folding chairs, some wielding professional-looking cameras like this was America's Got Talent. Flashbulbs popped. Red velvet dresses shimmered. Hair was perfectly curled. Lips painted in striking reds. The whole place looked more like a fashion show than a school event. And then, tucked away in the shadows of the farthest row, sat a girl by herself. Her dress was faded at the hem, sneakers once white now a dull gray, and her hair slightly uneven, like she'd trimmed it herself the night before. People whispered, never loud enough to be caught, but always just loud enough to be heard. They called her the poor girl. Her name was Lena. I'd known Lena since 6th grade. She was quiet, soft-spoken, and always looked down when someone glanced her way. When called to the board, her voice was so faint that teachers would gently ask her to speak up, sweetheart. But the first time she sang in music class, the entire room fell still. Her voice wasn't angelic or powerful, but it had something raw, something real, like pain wrapped in velvet. Lena lived at the edge of town, near the overgrown lot no kids played in because we thought it was haunted, or full of snakes. Her mom worked night shifts at the gas station. They didn't own a car. No washer, no dryer. They hung clothes on frayed ropes tied between trees in the backyard. Her father left when she was 6. She never talked much about him, but I once heard someone say her mom worked 3 jobs during that winter just to keep the heat on. She wore clothes her mother used to own, sewn smaller by hand. One day she came to school in mismatched socks. She never complained, but I once saw her sitting alone in the bathroom stall, hugging her notebook like it was a lifeline, eyes red but dry. And I wondered, how strong does a child have to be to carry that kind of weight and still keep walking? When Lena signed up for the talent show, no one believed it. Some thought it was a mistake. A group of girls giggled behind their hands. What's she gonna do, wash clothes with no machine? Maybe a live haircut tutorial with kitchen scissors? I didn't laugh. But I didn't defend her either. That's something I regret. A week before the show, I saw Lena at the library, sitting alone with cheap headphones over her ears, humming softly along to Hallelujah. She wrote down the lyrics by hand in a worn-out notebook, its pages curled and yellowing. She studied the sheet music like she was decoding a sacred text. She had no vocal coach, no piano accompaniment, no one to harmonize. Everything she did alone. On the night of the show, I arrived early. Not because I was excited, but because I had a strange feeling in my chest. A hunch that something was about to happen. Lena arrived quietly, alone. She sat in the darkest corner, fingers clenched in her lap, eyes down. One mother gently tugged her daughter's hand and whispered, "Let's sit over there, honey. That area's not very clean." And I watched as Lena shrank into herself, as if trying to disappear. She had no one there to support her, no one to drive her home. Her mother was still on the night shift, but she came anyway. When her name was called, there was no applause. A few parents looked around with mildly raised brows. Some students barely looked up from their phones. She stepped onto the stage, swallowed by the lights, and gazed into the audience like she couldn't see a single soul. Her hands trembled. The microphone stand was lowered. Then the music started. It was Hallelujah, the original version. No remix, no instrumental, no harmony, just Lena, just the silence behind her, and the storm she carried inside. And then she sang. If you've ever heard a voice that made your heart ache, not because it was technically perfect, but because it told the truth, then you know what I mean. Lena didn't just sing. She bared her soul. With every word, she laid down pieces of a life most people in that room would never understand. Hunger, loneliness, survival, and the tiniest thread of hope that she stitched into every note. I wasn't the only one who noticed. A mother in the third row gently touched her chest. A teacher quietly pressed his fingers to his lips. Even the kids who usually rolled their eyes sat up straighter, brows furrowing, silenced by something they didn't expect to feel. She had them. All of us. When she reached the line, "Love is not a victory march, it's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah." My throat tightened. And then it ended. She didn't bow. She didn't smile. She just stood there, as if she'd given away the last piece of herself. The applause roared. Not out of pity. Not because she was the poor girl. But because everyone in that room knew they'd just witnessed something real. And then he ruined it. The MC, our PE teacher of all people, strode back onto stage with a crooked smile and said, "Wasn't that something? A beautiful voice from our very own Lena, who's worked so hard despite, her circumstances. A real underdog. Let's give the poor girl a round of applause." Laughter bubbled up. Not mean laughter. Not exactly. But enough. Enough to feel like a slap. I saw her eyes change. The light in them dim. And I wish I'd done something. But I didn't. Lena bowed her head, turned and walked off stage. No one met her at the wings. No one embraced her. No one followed. She disappeared into the dark, like she was never even there. It started with a sound sharp, deliberate. The click of heels on polished wood. At first, no one noticed. People were still murmuring about Lena's performance. Some whispering about the MC's awkward comment. Others already checking the program to see who was up next. The gym was still buzzing, half clapping, half laughing. But that sound click, click, click grew louder. Rhythmic. Confident. Then heads began to turn. From the back of the gymnasium, a woman appeared. She wasn't a teacher. She wasn't a student's mom. She was different. You could tell by the way she moved. Like the room didn't intimidate her. Like she belonged somewhere far beyond fluorescent lights and foldable chairs. She wore a long red coat, belted tightly at the waist, and high-heeled boots that made each step echo like a drumbeat. Her hair was swept up in a tight twist, her lips painted deep plum, and her earrings sparkled like tiny suns. She looked like she'd stepped out of a Manhattan fashion editorial. Or maybe a movie about powerful women who don't ask permission. She walked past the PDA table, past the judges' panel, past the entire front row. Then, without so much as a pause, she stepped onto the stage. Gasps rose like a wave. The MC blinked at her, confused. Ma'am, we're in the middle of the..." She didn't wait for him to finish. She reached for the microphone. Her voice was smooth. Low. The kind of voice that doesn't need to yell to be heard. "Good evening," she said. "I didn't come here for a talent show. I was driving through town and decided to visit an old friend. But then I heard something that stopped me cold." The gym fell silent. Even the restless toddlers stilled. "A voice," she continued. "A voice that carried pain, beauty, and truth. A voice you don't hear every day. A voice you don't forget." She looked straight into the crowd. "Where is she? Where is Lena?" There was a beat of stunned silence. Then slowly, from behind the thick curtain at stage left, Lena peeked out. The woman smiled. "Come here, sweetheart." Lena didn't move at first. You could see her hesitation, her fear. But then something shifted. Maybe it was the way the woman held her gaze. Not like she was trying to rescue her, but like she truly saw her. Lena stepped onto the stage. And just like that, the world tilted. The woman placed a hand gently on Lena's shoulder. "My name is Vivian Moore," she said. "I'm a vocal producer, artist scout, and founder of the More Voices Initiative. I've worked with singers from Nashville to New York. I've coached Grammy winners and discovered voices in the unlikeliest places. But tonight, I heard one of the most honest performances of my entire career." Another wave of whispers rippled through the gym. Some jaws dropped. A few parents exchanged glances, half amazed, half suspicious. Vivian continued. "You called her the poor girl. You giggled when she stepped on stage. You saw worn sneakers and faded hems. But let me tell you what I saw. I saw power. I saw grace. I saw a young artist who told the truth. And that, my friends, is rarer than diamonds." Lena's eyes widened, like she couldn't believe the words were meant for her. Vivian turned to her and spoke directly, voice gentler now. "You don't know this town, your silence, Lena. And you don't need their permission to shine. And then she pulled something from her bag. A business card. Black with gold foil lettering. "When you're ready," she said. "Come find me. You don't have to stay small. Not anymore." And with that, she stepped down from the stage. The silence afterward was suffocating. No one knew what to do. The MC awkwardly thanked the next performer. Someone coughed. A baby cried. The mood had changed, and not everyone knew how to handle it. But Lena stood a little taller. She didn't slink off stage this time. She walked. Head high. Back straight. And for the first time all night, people moved to the side when she passed. That Monday, everything was different. Whispers followed her, but not the cruel kind. People stared, but not because they thought she didn't belong. It was something else now. Curiosity. Maybe guilt. A few girls from the cheer squad approached her at lunch and asked if she wanted to sit with them. Lena smiled politely and declined. She sat alone, but not like before. This time she chose it. She was no longer invisible. Word spread fast. Local blogs posted about the mystery woman in red. The school uploaded Lena's performance to their YouTube channel, and it hit 10,000 views in 3 days. The video was grainy, the sound fuzzy, but her voice, it cut through like lightning. Then came the emails. Vivian Moore was real. She ran a nonprofit dedicated to giving underprivileged youth a platform to be heard. She'd launched the careers of 2 country artists and 1 pop starlet, who now had a platinum album. And she wasn't in our town by accident. She'd grown up here. Years ago, she'd been just another girl in the crowd, another Lena, sitting in a corner unheard. And now she'd come back to listen. A week later, Lena left school early. She had a meeting. Vivian invited her to Nashville for a 3-day mentorship program. All expenses paid. Flight, hotel, coaching sessions with real producers. And still some people scoffed. She'll choke. It's just a pity gig. She's not that special. But Lena didn't answer them. She packed her backpack. She hugged her mom. She got on that plane. And something in me changed when I watched her walk through airport security. Still wearing those same sneakers, but moving like she was finally stepping into her skin. What happened next? She didn't come back famous. Not yet. There were no flashing cameras at the airport. No autograph seekers waiting by the baggage claim. Just her mom standing there in a faded coat, arms wrapped tight around her, crying quietly into her daughter's hair. Lena clutched her backpack like she always did, but there was something different in her face. She had changed. Not in the way people expected. She didn't return with a stylist or a new accent or a $1,000 coat. No big record deal. No PR team following her. But something inside her, something unshakable, was different now. Confidence. Conviction. Voice. When she walked back into Beechwood Middle, the same linoleum floors and creaky lockers greeted her. But now the air shifted around her presence. Teachers stopped her in the hallway, smiling a little longer. Students who once looked past her now tried to meet her eyes. Even the janitor nodded at her, like she was someone worth knowing. And she was. But Lena didn't use her voice the way most people would, after a brush with fame. She didn't become arrogant. She didn't start posting selfies with inspirational captions, or chasing the spotlight. Instead, she did something even rarer. She listened. In music class, a new girl had joined, Kendra, fresh from a different state, always wearing headphones and speaking in a whisper. One afternoon, when Mrs. Delaney asked for volunteers to sing scales, Kendra froze. Her face turned red. The class snickered. Lena raised her hand. "I'll do it with her," she said. She didn't have to, but she did, because she knew what fear felt like. She remembered the sting of laughter. So Lena stood next to Kendra at the piano, singing gently beside her. Not louder. Not above. With her. That moment went unposted. No viral video. No standing ovation. But in that small room something shifted. Word got out that Lena had worked with real producers. That she'd stood in a studio with soundproof walls and golden microphones. Vivian Moore had invited her to a second round of mentorship, this time in New York City. But Lena didn't accept right away. Instead, she sat in her bedroom, stared at her scuffed ceiling, and made a decision. She'd go. But only when she was ready to carry more than just her own story. Because now, Lena wasn't just singing for herself. She was singing for every girl who'd ever been laughed at, for every kid who sat at lunch alone, for every quiet soul still too afraid to be heard. By spring, the school announced a new initiative, a Voices Rising showcase. No judges, no prizes, just a stage for anyone who wanted to be seen. Lena helped organize it. She handwrote invites, designed posters, sat with kids who didn't think they had any talent, and helped them find something anyway. One boy read a poem he wrote in secret. A shy girl played ukulele with trembling fingers. A group of kids banged on buckets and made music out of rhythm and joy. Lena closed the show, not with Hallelujah this time. She wrote her own song. A simple melody, just her and her voice and a line she sang over and over. I won't be quiet just to keep you comfortable. The crowd stood. This time, there were no poor girl whispers. No giggles. Only silence. Then applause. Then tears. Later that night, I found her sitting on the curb outside the gym, hugging her knees, still in her second-hand dress. The sky stretched wide above her, stars blinking like they were listening. I sat beside her. You killed it, I said. She smiled. Did I? Lena, I whispered. You changed everything. She looked at me, not with disbelief, not with doubt, but with this quiet acceptance, like maybe for the first time, she could believe it too. She went to New York that summer. Vivian helped her record an EP. 4 songs, raw and unpolished, just Lena and her guitar. It didn't top charts. But it didn't need to. It reached the right people. An indie label picked it up. A small tour followed, coffee houses, school auditoriums, community centers. She never wore flashy outfits. She never pretended to be anyone else. She just sang. And people listened. Back home, Beechwood changed too. The talent show evolved. No more categories. No more snide remarks. Teachers now spoke of expression instead of performance. The auditorium got new lighting. The music room, once underfunded, received grants. Some donated anonymously, we had a guess. And more importantly, kids like Lena stopped disappearing. Because now they had somewhere to go. Somewhere to be heard. Years passed. Lena didn't become a pop icon. She didn't date celebrities or trend on Twitter. But her music reached people like her. Kids in basements. Women in shelters. Boys who wrote poems in math class and never showed them to anyone. And one day, 5 years after that night in the gym, I stood in line at a small venue in Chicago. She was performing there. The ticket was $12. Inside, the room was packed. Not glamorous, but real. And when Lena walked on stage, dressed in a plain black sweater and beat-up boots, the room fell quiet. She looked out into the crowd and smiled. This next song, she said, is for anyone who was ever called the poor girl. Or the weird kid. Or not enough. You are enough. Then she sang. After the show I waited. I didn't expect her to remember me. But when she saw me, her face lit up. Hey, she said, hugging me. You came. Of course, I whispered. Wouldn't miss it. She held my hand for a second longer. I still remember that night, she said softly. The night everything changed. I looked at her. No, I said. You changed. You stood up. That woman in red, she didn't make you. She just saw you. Lena smiled. And for the first time I realized. Her voice wasn't what changed everything. Her courage did. So to anyone watching this, wondering if your voice matters, if your story means anything, let Lena be your reminder. You don't need the perfect dress. You don't need the perfect life. You just need the courage to step up, open your mouth, and let the world hear your truth. Because sometimes one voice, one raw, trembling, honest voice, is all it takes to change everything. Even if you start in the dark. Especially if you start in the dark.